I want to welcome everybody to the Mission 43 Podcast. I'm Brian Von Herbulis, the host, here with co-host Dan Nelson, our Director of Engagement at Mission 43, and our very special guest today, extreme adaptive athlete, philanthropist, veteran advocate, and a whole bunch of other fabulous, wonderful things that the list is just way too long to cover all the things that Kirstie Ennis is involved in. So Kirstie, welcome back to Idaho. I know you've been here before, but it's great to have you here sitting down with Mission 43 and being a part of our event tonight with the Challenged Athletes Foundation here in Idaho. Welcome.
Thank you. Honored to be here. Thanks for having me a part of it.
Reading your resume has actually done some damage to my ego because my lack of accomplishments compared to yours is, I think I probably stand with the majority of people. You're pretty exceptional.
Yeah, I think that'll be a common theme. You've accomplished more in your young life than most accomplish in a lifetime. So I don't understand where your energy comes from. I hope to learn some more of that and maybe figure out some of that for my own life. But it's truly amazing. Like just understanding all that you're involved in motivates the crap out of me every day. You and people like you that find the drive to just push forward and empower other people just with your messaging and your actions is inspiring. So I want to learn more about where all that comes from, what drives you, and the person that's sitting right here in this studio with us. So let's dive into some of that. I know you're the product of Marine parents, right?
Oh, yeah.
So both of your parents were Marines, which I know how challenging it was for just one parent, for my children. But growing up in a Marine household, how did that shape you?
Well, so I'm gonna tell my favorite story of my parents, and I'll try to make it quick. But mom and dad got married at 18 when they were living on Navarre Beach in Florida. Dad joined the Marine Corps right off the bat. 9 years later, I was already born. We were living on Marine Corps Base, 29 Palms. My mom comes home and tells my dad, I think these female Marines are pretty badass. And my dad looks at my mom and says, I will never be married to a female Marine. To which my mom turns around, leaves, gets an age waiver, and joins the Marine Corps. So, one of my earliest memories that I have left is actually watching my mom graduate, walk across the parade deck at Parris Island. And I knew from a very young age that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to give my parents a reason to be proud of me, like I was proud of them. And then, through my entire life, or my childhood, rather, I was always too smart for my own good, very mischievous. But it was one of those things where I've always had a passion for people. And even when I was young, it was how can I be of service to other people? So me joining the military at a young age, that was just such a perfect fit. And even now, after being medically retired due to the injuries and everything, that's what I'm doing right now. That's what fuels me as other people. Can I help them, or seeing their successes, or seeing what makes them happy, what makes them smile? Honestly, I wake up every day and I say, okay, well, what can I do for somebody else?
Did the Marine Corps provide you what you were looking for? When you first went through the process, did you get what you wanted out of it?
I loved the Marine Corps.
Yeah,
absolutely loved it. I had no desire to get out. I'm kind of that person that really needs to have a schedule and have a routine, or else, you guys hear me, I'm an idea factory. I'm all over the place all the time. So for me, that structure was really, really great. And I just loved going in every day and knowing what my purpose was or what my role in the grand scheme was. And for me, that outlined everything else, going into something and having that confidence that you can make a difference, that you will make a difference. I think I've carried that with me throughout everything at this point. I walk into a room and I hold my head high and I poke my chest out a little bit. And, it's just because of everything that I learned in the military at this point.
Did you find that entry-level process difficult? Was it shocking to you, or were you already used to it?
As far right when I first got in?
Yeah.
So I made it hard on myself.
Okay.
So I was a bad kid. I was a very smart kid, done with high school by 15, did 2 years of community college, and continued to get in trouble. So 4 months after my 17th birthday, I went to the recruiter's office and was like, time to go, guys, and gave my parents the paperwork for them to sign and whatnot. And leaving wasn't hard, but getting into boot camp, I was the one that said why. I had an attitude problem.
That must have gone really well.
Yes, exactly. They'd say scream and I'd whisper. It was the worst.
Nonconformist.
Yeah, exactly. But for me, it was it's all a perspective thing. I could go in there and I could say, well, I have 13 weeks of boot camp and this is going to suck and I'm going to get yelled at the entire time. Or I can sit there and say, I'm going to get paid to be in shape, throw grenades, learn how to camp. It's all about how you look at things. And so honestly, even though I got my butt kicked the entire time, I had a blast in like boot camp, combat training, and even my A school and my C school.
So you were an airframe mechanic, right?
Right.
And that also led to some other tasks like being a helicopter door gunner, which is pretty badass.
Yes.
Like you get to destroy things from the sky. That's kind of cool. But that also led to traumatic injury for you in June of 2012. So second deployment to Afghanistan, right?
Right.
And that area that you were in, I'm very familiar with, and I think you were flying to Nowzad, right?
Yep.
Yeah, beautiful, wonderful place. In fact, that's where our last guest was also injured, was in a wonderful place called Nowzad. So just tell us a little bit. I mean, it's been 7.5 years.
Yep.
So roughly 7.5 years from time of injury. But just capture that moment for us a little bit so that there's perspective on where you were in life, what you were doing, and then how that led to a transition, a life transition in a really rough way.
Well, I think one of the big things to like focus on is like, so my first deployment was in January 2011.
Okay.
Got home in August 2012, and I really like, in the moment, didn't want anything to do with going back to Afghanistan. But one of my former gunnery sergeants reached out to me and said, "Let's deploy again." And I was like, "Absolutely not, bud. Not going to happen."
Yeah.
And sure enough, 2 weeks later, I was on a plane to Hawaii, to K-Bay, to train with Heavy Marine Helicopter Squadron 362. And in January 2012, was right back in Afghanistan. And in the very early stages, the advanced party of that deployment, we had a helicopter go down that killed everybody. And their call sign that night was Irontail 06. Well, fast forward to the remainder of this deployment of mine, like obviously we're doing everything from medical evacuations to drug raids, like insertions, extractions, and everything in between. Everything in between. I mean, it was wild. You know, obviously transporting prisoners and everything. But on June 23rd, 2012, when I actually got hurt, it was the strangest thing because like I knew I was going to get hurt. Like it was just something that was in the air. I was supposed to fly out later in the evening. You know, they came in and said, basically, grab your stuff, you're going outbound. And I go to run out to my aircraft 01, had my name painted on the side. It's the one I flew on all the time. And they said, no, you're going to go out on a memorial helicopter for the 6 guys that passed away. And basically, it was just like a routine thing. It hadn't flown in a long time. And it was just like, I mean, I have pictures from hours before I got hurt where I'm turning up this aircraft. And, I mean, it should have been, again, fairly routine. We were going to drop off, 3 space-available Army medics to Nowzad, going to go from Nowzad to Musakala and do an extraction of Marines. And unfortunately, we never even truly made it safely to Nowzad. Got into just a bizarre situation for the pilots, and unfortunately, my pilot failed to execute combat maneuvers. And the last thing I basically remember is them saying, crash is imminent. You come off your triggers, and for me as a door gunner, there's nowhere to go. As I'm on left gun, you're basically tethered to the floorboard. And so I just back up into my buddy Murph, and we kind of just wait for it. And when we hit the ground, I had severe head trauma. I had fractures in my cervical spine. I assume it was my 50 cal, but something blew through my face, and I lost my jaw. Right frontal lobe was severely damaged, obviously damage to my left leg, my arms, my ears, my eyes, laundry list of things. And they called in 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines to come out from Nowzad to provide security. And I just remember them like finally pulling me out of the helicopter, and I just started to scream because I couldn't find my tail gunner. And my tail gunner was like my military hero. Like that was my guy. That was just, it was the role model. That's who I wanted to be when I grew up, so to speak. And they threw me into the back of the lead helicopter that we were flying with, and the left door gunner of that aircraft bent down next to me and said, "Don't close your freaking eyes, because you won't open them again." And like I didn't feel anything. I guess I was in shock, or it was adrenaline, or whatever it was. I knew I was hurt because I couldn't really move, but it didn't sink in until they flew me into Camp Bastion, and they wheeled me into this makeshift hospital. My sergeant major and my gunnery sergeant, who had asked me to go on that deployment, were both standing there and just staring at me and crying. And in that moment, like, I knew it was over. Like, the entire time, like, this ride from Nowzad to Bastion, it was, they can't send me home. You know, I had just been combat meritoriously promoted to sergeant. Like, they need me, and I'm 6 weeks away from coming home. And, yeah, I mean, they ended up packing up my bags, and the hardest thing that I have ever had to do was leave those guys behind.
Did everyone survive
They
on
did.
that crew? Everyone survived.
Yeah. And I'm pretty, I don't know if you want to call it superstitious or spiritual or whatever it is, but I wholeheartedly believe that the boys of Iron Tail 06 didn't let any of us die. Because if you would have seen the pictures of me or, I mean, even my tail gunner, like, we shouldn't have fared the way that we did.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be sitting here in front of you guys.
Was that the only time in your deployments that you felt that? Like that imminence of, I know I'm going to be hurt, I know I'm going to die?
Yes. Well, and it's weird because normally when you're flying, like, you don't like, you're just doing your job. Like, I mean, you can hear the side of your helicopter get hit, and it's that very, like, prominent thwack sound. Like, you know it's coming, but it doesn't, like, you just go into the zone of you're doing your job, and you have guys to protect, you have your helicopter to protect, and that's it. But it was weird. I mean, and even previously, so my buddy, not my buddy, but my Staff Sergeant Petey had gotten shot. He had a bullet lodged right under his heart during one of his flights. And it was all on camera. And so, of course, right after that, Chief Warrant Officer, you know, our maintenance officer says no more cameras on the flight line. So the fact that I have pictures of me turning up my aircraft to leave that flight line weeks later, like, it was just weird. It was just like a heavy, or I don't know. It was bizarre.
So what was recovery like? Initial recovery?
Hell.
I mean, you're dealing with a lot there. Yeah.
Yeah, it was absolutely terrible. And I honestly, I don't think physically it was as bad as it was mentally and emotionally. You know, don't get me wrong. Like, I've had 44 surgeries. I've gone through so many different therapies and everything that you can think of. But for me, it was like really being stripped of that purpose. You know, 17 years old, you love the Marine Corps. Now it's going to be taken away from you. That's a pretty harsh reality to face.
I mean, we talk about it a lot. Like, two things the military does really well: provide people a sense of purpose and identity.
Absolutely.
And those two things were stripped away from you in that moment.
Yep.
So that's on such a magnified scale in the way that happened. It's what everybody goes through, right? The day you have to leave. Yours was forced.
Right.
So we have this discussion often with Mission 43 members about transition. That's what we are, right? We provide transition support to people. But when it's stripped of you, it's different. You know, we all have to recognize change is coming, but yours came very abruptly. So it's just a different attitude, a mindset, and what you're going through. I can only imagine the dark days that you felt. So how did you contend with it? Was it family? Was it friends? Was it the support network in the hospitals?
A lot of it really came down to family and friends. So I had, we'll say, an extremely dark day on the 1-year anniversary of my Alive Day. And when I woke back up in the hospital, my dad came to me. And again, my dad's this big boy, tough dude, covered in tattoos. And he looked at me and he was like, "You've got to be kidding me. You know, the enemy couldn't kill you. Now you're going to do it for them. Like, what are you doing?" And that's kind of when the light bulb went off. I realized, I hate to say it this way because I don't mean to sound rude, but like, I realized how selfish I was being. You know, like, sure, I was broken and I was damaged, but I made it home. You know, there's a lot of men and women that never made it home. But then not only that, but if I couldn't show up for myself, then I needed to show up for the people around me, the people that cared about me. And I guess in that moment, it was the first time that I realized, like, the pain that I was causing other people by giving up on myself.
Which can then become a new purpose.
Yes.
Which is, I think, where you find yourself today, rooted in new purpose, inspiring other people through your actions and how you carry yourself.
Yep, that's absolutely it.
Was that the aha moment? Like, you're 1 year out and then you have this experience where it goes to the darkest place and your dad woke you up, essentially?
Yeah. And then I like I said, and then I just realized, like I was kind of backed into a corner. Like, what was I going to do? Now at this point, even after my injuries, I'd fought for a while. I fought the med board process to stay in. Like, I was so adamant. And for whatever reason, I was super convinced that I was going to be able to stay in, and it was just shot down time after time. And in that moment, I realized, like, okay, you're going to push everyone away from you. And then you're going to have no friends, no family. You're not going to have a career, not going to have a purpose. Yep. So it was like, I mean, can I say it was the lowest of the lows? Maybe not quite that low, but I was pretty close.
Were you at Walter Reed, Bethesda? Were you home at that point?
Naval Medical Center, San Diego.
Okay.
Yep.
So you'd been in the hospital for a year, basically, or
Two.
hospitals.
Rehabbing for 2 years.
2 years.
2
It's
years.
2014, right?
Yep.
When you were medically retired?
Yeah, I got out in May of 2014.
Yeah.
So
2
what happened
years.
after that 1 year mark then, that one experience? Like what's the next step after a transition like that mentally where you're like, I'm hurting other people by my behavior?
I started to try. I know that sounds really
No,
stupid,
no,
but like
it does
I
not.
would go into my therapies, whether it was mental health or speech therapy, vestibular, cognitive, any of it,
Yeah.
and I would go in and I'd go through the motions to be like, all right, check in the box. I'm not going to get a page 11 or an NJP or any of this stuff, but I'm showing up. I'm here. And then when my dad came to me, I was like, you know what, you have a serious problem and you need to address it. And I think a lot of it was I was just internalizing so much that it was, I mean, I had these huge blinders on as to what I was actually doing to other people. And I did. Like, I took my recovery very seriously. And then I actually, I think one of the, I don't want to say the hardest parts, but one of the harder parts of my recovery is, I was in the hospital with these guys and only guys, but I mean, they were killing themselves in the hospital, whether it was opioids, gunshot wounds, I mean, all of it. I mean, some of the guys were suck-sorting pistols in their hospital rooms. Like,
Yep.
And to me, it's like, I witnessed all that for the first year. And so the second year when I started to help myself, I was like, okay, well, how do I help these guys? Like, how do I figure out, like, even if I can only save one other person or help one other person, like, what do I do? And that's really where, like, I started to give a crap again.
And where did you find adaptive sports as an outlet?
So an organization called Disabled Sports USA reached out to me when I was still in the hospital. And they asked if I had any desire to learn a winter sport. Quite frankly, Florida, no idea about snow, winter, mountains, any of it.
Surfing, maybe?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, I was just like desperate to get out of the hospital. Like, it's such four walls of a hospital is not where you heal mentally and emotionally, in my opinion. But so I was like, you know what? Like, get me out of here. And my doctors would only clear me to sit ski. But when I showed up to this mountain in Colorado, no one asked me for a medical clearance. And so I was like, well, snowboarding looks pretty sweet.
Yeah.
And so I picked up snowboarding. And I mean, honestly, that became that new passion. Like, that became a reason for me to wake up every day. I mean, I was sneaking out of the hospital on the weekends to go up to Big Bear and snowboard and stuff. And it really did. Like, it was kind of that reminder of what my resiliency, but also just independence, like that I could go out and I could still live a happy, healthy, independent life. I didn't have to let an injury, visible or invisible, dictate what I was going to be capable of. And then so from there, snowboarding like turned into everything else that I'm doing now.
You became hyper competitive in snowboarding, right?
Oh yes, extremely. Yeah. I started competing in border cross and bank slalom alongside Team USA. 2015, I was the USASA national champion, and then was 5th in the world. And yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where I let it consume me. Instead of focusing on all of these bad things that have been thrown my way, I was like, well, now you have this new gift that, someone gave to you. So capitalize on it, use it.
So can you stay longer and we'll go up and you can teach me how to be a better
Yes.
snowboarder? 'Cause I'm in like self-preservation mode following my 12-year-old down the mountain.
Oh, man.
I'm
It's
trying
bad.
not to kill
It's bad.
myself. Yeah. But I make it down the mountain and I'm spending quality time with this little dude and it's amazing. It's fun, but he gets faster and faster and I just get more dangerous.
Yep.
So I fear for everyone around me. So if you decide to come back to Idaho,
Yes.
then we'll go snowboarding.
Definitely.
I was going to ask you, so Mission 43, we believe that like things like adrenaline, competition, and nature, like outdoor recreation, all have healing powers, that assist in recovery, that assist in transition, that assist in finding purpose. Was any of those three, let's just say those three things alone, competition, adrenaline, and nature, is there one that stuck out to you as like what was healing to you?
I mean, honestly, it's all three, honestly. But as far as for first place, I mean, it's kind of a tie between competition and just nature. Because honestly, like, for me, like, okay, so a helicopter door gunner, I mean, that's pretty dang high speed, low drag. You know what I mean? And so now it's like full stop. You can't even walk or speak or communicate on your own. So you go from being this high-functioning person to doing nearly nothing at all. So for me, I was looking for something to fill that void, to patch up those holes that, I'd been missing for so long and just longing for. And then, I mean, the nature aspect of it, like, I got lost. And I needed to get lost to find myself and find that new purpose again.
I love that.
And a lot of it was like, you just have to starve. You have to starve every hurting part of you.
How how then did mountaineering come about? Like, you have this love of the outdoors, competition, but mountaineering's like you and the mountain.
That's really what it is. And I think that's why, like, I mean, it's me. You know, with snowboarding, like, no one can do that for you. Sure, you can get a chairlift up to the top, but, like, you have to get down that mountain. And so with, you know, mountaineering, it gave me that sense of just, I mean, I enjoy suffering all the way up to the top, because when I get up to the top, I'm like, damn, I did it, you know? So again, it was just that reminder of again, resiliency and independence. And I mean, when I first got into mountaineering, I didn't really think that it would lead to where it has now. But I mean, sitting on top of Kilimanjaro for the first time and looking over, like, how far I had made it and, like, how hard and miserable it was, I mean, I wore a smile the entire way back down. I don't know how to explain that, and I don't know if it's something that, like, you don't know. Again, maybe you have to go, like, drag yourself through those trenches to be able to really feel that glory on the backside of it.
Yeah.
But
That mental high is phenomenal. Like, and nowhere near to what you do and experience, but just getting out in these mountains or just being in a mountain setting is calming. Absolutely. But it's also, it drives you to achieve something, and you're physically exhausted, and your lack of O2 is taxing on the body, and just being able to get to that point of a summit and seeing that vast view, to me, where I'm breathing in those moments, gives me all the energy I need in that moment to want to relive that experience.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it for me too is like, man, it's a reminder that you don't matter.
Yeah.
Like,
this is a big world.
Your problems do not matter, because you get out into that world and you don't have your phone, or you can't stare at a screen or any of that anymore, and it is you and your thoughts in a great big world. Like, I mean, it does. Like, it snaps you out of it real quick, and especially, like you said, after you're struggling and you're sucking wind and oxygen's thin, like, you realize that, you know what, maybe the day-to-day isn't quite that bad.
Yeah, pain's a great reminder.
There's
how small
there's no
are.
Uber Eats to Everest Base Camp then, or, well, I'm going to change my plans. But no, I think there's enlightenment comes from suffering. And if you choose to self-inflict in a healthy manner, then you can occasionally be enlightened to the point that you seemingly have been. It's pretty impressive.
So what do you fear?
Frostbite on my nub.
Frostbite.
Yep, that's kind of it now. Frostbite on my leg. I'm absolutely, like, deathly afraid to lose any more of my leg. I don't have a lot left to play with. But I mean, outside of that, I don't know. Like, I mean, originally, like, if you would have asked me that maybe a year ago, I'd have been like, failure, because it's always a competition with myself. I'm, like, always chasing, like, the next great success. But now it's like I've just learned to embrace failure, and it's like, all right, well, that's opportunity now. So, like, outside of that, I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Have you failed? Like, have you failed to summit?
All the time.
Yeah.
I have lost in races. I've had to turn around on mountains. I've earned grades that are less, far less than average. I try to get into careers that I wasn't the greatest fit. I've hurt people. I've made mistakes. I'm not perfect. I mean, you fail all the time. I'm not special, and I really, nor is anybody else. I think one of the things that we've cultivated in our society, for whatever reason, is we've taught people to be afraid of failing, but in turn, we're teaching people to be afraid of trying.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and I love that type of inspiration right there. Like, it's okay to fail. That's where you learn. I have that conversation with my kids all the time.
Yeah.
Like, perfection is going to get you nowhere, because you're not learning in those moments, and you're not developing strength of character in those moments. So it's okay. Do it, but try it. Go through it and come out on the other side a better person.
Yep.
So I want to know a little bit about your relationship with the Challenged Athletes Foundation. We have a relationship here with them in Idaho. Idaho's the only state now, I think, with its own chapter, if you will, of the Challenged Athletes Foundation outside of headquarters there in San Diego. And we're really pushing hard to grow our population of adaptive athletes here in Idaho and make this an epicenter for certain extreme adaptive sports. So what is your relationship with them?
Yeah, so I actually have, long-standing ties with Challenged Athletes Foundation. So, back in 2012, I met Nico Marcolongo on the beach with his black lab.
Yeah.
And I was in one of those chairs with the big old tires because I couldn't walk and everything else. And he cruised right up to me and he was like, you know what? I can't wait to see you in the water, dude. Like, we'll teach you how to surf and the whole nine. And I'd had little interactions with them for years while I was in the hospital. And I had always seen them. They have a huge presence in San Diego, obviously. And then just with my prosthetist, they work with a bunch of different adaptive athletes there. And actually last year was the first time that I really recultivated or that relationship. And they actually, Bob Babbitt stepped up and said, hey, I want to figure out how to support your Everest climb. And in that moment, this fella knew nothing about me. He wanted to have me on his radio show, and we had kind of one of these conversations and went back and forth, and he was just all in. He was like, I believe in what you're doing. Like, we represent you and you represent us, so let's figure something out. And then ever since then, I've obviously met a ton of their different athletes, and I think what they're doing with, I don't want to say enabling, but empowering, amputees or the disabled population to go out and face that fear of going forth and just trying something new. That changes lives. That quite literally will get somebody back up on their own 2 feet and do the things that they need to do to have that future that they dreamed of. And I think sports is just, I don't know. Sports is just a huge part of my life, obviously. Like I say, it saved my life over and over. So the fact that Challenged Athletes Foundation is turning around and giving that to other people, that's huge to me. And so actually moving forward, this year, I'll be running the Ironman 70.3 in Oceanside on behalf of the Challenged Athletes Foundation.
That sounds painful.
Yeah, absolutely brutal. And then actually the 50th anniversary of the New York City Marathon.
Nice.
That's how much I believe in what they're doing and their mission. I am going to suffer through that on one leg.
Yeah. So what's training look like right now for this?
Oh my gosh, just time in the saddle, ton of running. And it's absolutely miserable. I wish I could explain to you what it's like to run without a knee, but I can't. Yeah. But ton of running, ton of strength and conditioning, trying to find that happy balance of obviously prepping for, a half marathon that's involved with the 70.3, but then also moving into May with my Denali attempt.
So you've got a strong relationship with them. They're Operation Rebound with their veteran adaptive athletes, and they're standing behind you in these upcoming events.
Yeah.
Well, we hope to get you back to Idaho to participate in some of the upcoming things that we're going to bring to this state with the adaptive community here. So
absolutely,
we hope to see you in Idaho a heck of a lot more in the future.
Most definitely.
I want to talk a little bit about the Kirstie Ennis Foundation and how that came about, and why you do it, and why you give back and inspire so many people through your own pain and putting yourself out there.
Well, so I think, where do I even start with that question? That was a lot. Well, so the Kirstie Ennis Foundation really started, so back in 2017, when I decided I was going to climb Kilimanjaro and try to raise a bunch of money for clean water for the East Tanzanians. I didn't really have any desire to continue the 7 summits or any of that. But after I was successful and summited and then raised $150,000, I was like, there's actually something to this. And obviously the physical just exertion and again that suffering, and then actually realizing that I could use mountaineering to pay it forward and help other people, I decided that I wanted to continue these climbs. And I didn't really obviously I wasn't an organization, I wasn't incorporated or any of that, so I was using CrowdRise and GoFundMe and stuff like that to raise money for different nonprofits that I believed in. And quite frankly, a lot of corporate organizations were like, absolutely not. If it's not your brand, your image, your organization, right, we're not giving money to it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was kind of backed into a corner, and I was really, I was pretty heartbroken about it, because for me, even to this day, I don't make a salary. I just do it because I love what I'm doing, and I love what I do, and I love seeing other people smile. And so I was pretty gutted about it. And eventually, a good friend of mine and mentor came to me, and he was like, you know what, you need to do it now at this point. And so we went and got lawyers, and we created the Kirstie Ennis Foundation, got our 501c3 stamp, and started raising money. And now we basically financially support other deserving nonprofits that provide education, opportunity, and healing in the outdoors. We provide individual scholarships for the same things, and then I actually collect medical device technology and recycle them, and bring them to the different third world countries that I climb in.
Nice.
So yeah, and it's honestly, simply put, I started it because there was a bunch of people and organizations that came out of the woodworks when I got hurt to get me back to being or finding who I really was. And to me now, I look at my life, and be pretty damn selfish of me not to turn around and try and pay it forward and give back. I don't care if you're a veteran or civilian, man, woman, child, whatever. Like, if I can help you, then I want to figure out how. And to me, like, the outdoors is there for the taking. It's there for all of us. So if I can, like, provide that, small, bridge, if you will, to, like, introduce somebody who may not be involved in the outdoors to it, then that's what I want to do.
So in and amongst all these other activities, you're also a serial entrepreneur. So tell me a little bit about these business ventures you're involved in.
Yeah. It happened on accident. My entire life I've been like a sponge. I just want to learn more. I want to know why and all of that. But in 2015, I had a revision amputation, obviously to my left side. And on December 23rd, 2015, I had MRSA severely, and they told me that I wasn't going to be awake on Christmas Day. And when I woke up on Christmas Day, I was shocked that I had what little leg that I do have left, but just the fact that, like, I woke up and I saw my family and my friends, and I kind of, like, scanned around the room, and I said, anybody that's in here right now, this is the second time that I've chased death now, but I looked around the room and I said, if you're in here right now and giving me your prayers, your strength, your energy, whatever it is, like, I want to make sure you live your dreams, because now I get a second shot at mine. And so since that day, I've just been basically flipping my money and investing in their dreams. So everything from a t-shirt company to hair salons to CrossFit gyms, working on an art studio, now a real estate team for my mom, like, kind of a laundry list of things. But
so you're getting involved in business ventures to give back to other people.
Absolutely.
And you're willing to absorb risk and everything that comes with entrepreneurship for their sake.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, a lot of pain with businesses for sure.
But again, it's that thing of like that's what fuels me day in and day out, like, to see other people, like, if they're just creating change, if they're shattering a boundary, if they're chasing a dream, a goal, like, and then to see them, like, come out on the other side wearing a smile and knowing that they put in the work that they needed to make it a reality, like, that's what gets me going. Like, whether it's a sport, a business, school, any of it.
Even with the failure that comes with it.
Yes.
Sometimes in business.
The hardship.
Yeah.
But the hardship, I say all the time, the hardship in our life, like, oftentimes it's the same thing that catapults us into the greatest moments of our lives. Like, look at what I'm doing right now. Pretty bad situation, and, like, I thank God that happened to me now.
Now, at this point, like, with all the success you've had coming after this trauma, do you ever feel sorry for yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I put on a good front, but it hurts, and it sucks. And I still go to speech therapy, and I still have to do mental health, and I still have to get my, annual brain scan to make sure my brain's not exploding inside my skull. Like, I do feel sorry for myself. But again, like, it's a perspective shift. Like, I could sit here and say, woe is me, and I lost my leg, I lost my military career, my memory, I lost all of these things, or maybe I've been stripped of something that maybe I won't have later on down the road. Or I can just look at what I have right now and be grateful. And so, yeah, don't get me wrong. Like, every day there's probably there's a solid 5 minutes of a pity party, but you snap out of it.
How do you snap out of it? What do you use? Like, what brings you to the you that's sitting here?
I remind myself of, like, I say the people on, like, the overhead. Again, the people that didn't make it home. Even the people that didn't necessarily die overseas. But, I've lost buddies that lost the battle to their symptoms of PTSD. And I've seen what that's caused. And so, like I said, I can sit here and I can bog myself down or be depressed or be upset. And don't get me wrong, some of those things aren't a choice. I know that. But I can try to actively pick myself up, and I can try to actively make a change in my life. So a lot of it really is, instead of sitting here and saying, woe is me, I'll get up and I'll walk out that door and say, you know what, thank God I can walk out that door. Or, I have a hard time, driving at night because my eyes are so bad now. But I'll pick up a book and say, you know what, well, at least you can see those words and you can read a book now. At least I'm not, paralyzed from the waist down. At least there's a laundry list of things that we can turn around and say, at least I have that. And I think that's what we've gotten away from in society, really, is we want to look at the things that we don't have.
It can always be worse, right?
Yep.
No matter how bad your situation is, it can always be worse, and somebody's dealing with something worse than you are, which is sometimes hard because we're human and we're selfish by nature, and we think about us and what's happening to us. But when you do put it all into perspective, which I think you're doing a magnificent job of today, and in everything that you're doing, you're coaching yourself through those hard times and realizing the impact that you can have on others and the influence you can have on others. And that's what is empowering to me, in your ability to recognize that you're not perfect. Like, you're struggling every day. You're living this every day. You're living transition every day still, and recovery every day probably are things that you go through. And but how you can channel that into helping other people, to me, is what I see is so valuable, and what you offer back to your communities, whether it's adaptive athletes or these people you're helping fund with their business interests and their entrepreneurial mindset. You're willing to jump into those things and make it reality for them.
I mean, I don't know. Like, it might sound cheesy, but I don't think this life is meant to be lived for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of life would that be? You know?
Yeah.
We always push this mentality, or I don't know, slogan or whatever you want to say, like veterans, not victims. You know, like, we want people to be empowered by this badge of honor that is military service, and not lean on it. Like, this is who I am. Like, this is old me. I'm, you know, whatever rank and position and title, but this is what I'm doing now, and that's what's important, because I'm a veteran, and I am proud of that, but I'm not a victim. The reason I bring that up is, like, you have an obvious, like, disability. Like, you don't have one of your legs. So how have you avoided getting put into that victim mentality? Because there's a lot of groups out there, even though they're well-intentioned, you know what I mean? But they accidentally put veterans, I think, into kind of a victim state. How have you avoided it?
Oh, man. I don't know. I mean, honestly, like, a lot of the time it's just being able to, like, I don't know. I think about, like, the life that I could be leading, and then, like, the people around me. Who's watching? To me, it's like, do I want to play victim and let some little girl, like, watch me, like, roll over in my grave? Or do I want, like, a little girl watching me in the airport to say, you know what? Hey, that lady with one leg stumbled and fell, but guess what? She got back up, and she's going to keep going on about her day. Like, I want to show people that, like, you can have the independent life. And I mean, as far as, like, not playing victim, I don't know. I mean, you can't let yourself. I mean, I have no idea how to really answer that question.
Did you ever feel yourself being sucked kind of into it?
All the time. Oh, my God. So, and I'm going to be bold right now. But
go for it.
So, to me, it's like one of my biggest frustrations with, and I'm, again, going to say it, but, like, the post 9/11 veterans is, like, this sense of entitledness.
Yeah.
No one owes you a goddamn thing.
Yeah.
No one has to say thank you for your service, because last time I checked, you walked into that recruiter's office by your damn self and you signed that paper. Mm-hmm. And so to me, it's like, I don't know at what point we lost that, and I'm obviously very, very grateful for, like, the other generations in the military for taking such great care of us. But to me, it's like, at a certain point, like, we have fed into it. Like, we have been so coddled, and it's, I mean, I don't know. I think we've just gotten pretty sensitive about it. And to me, it's like, what would a Vietnam veteran have done? What would a Cold War veteran have done? That would have been spit on, and then what? He would have gone about his day anyways.
Yep.
So, I mean, to me, it's like, you have to get up and get on with your life.
Yeah, we have culpability in this mentality, and we've helped breed it ourselves. So we've got to become much more independent of any of that victimhood that gets projected upon us.
Well, I think a big thing that, like, for me, is it's all choices. Don't get me wrong. 1,000% ask for help. There's nothing wrong with somebody helping you, but when it's all said and done, it is your choice. It is up to you to determine how you're going to live your life.
Yeah.
And if you want to be a sad sack and live in the wallows, then so be it. That's on you. But then don't turn around with your hand out because you're not willing to work for it. Like, I think at a certain point, we have to define those goals. We have to have an accountability. And if you can't find that internally, sure, again, go ask a friend and find some help for it. But, like, we have to hold ourselves accountable. And it's not okay to play victim. Again, like, in the moment and you're struggling, so be it. But it's not okay to, like, prolong this victim mentality. It's not.
I think so. I met a mother that lost her son, service member, to suicide recently, and she's struggling with that recently. And she asked me something like, how do we get rid of this man up mentality? You know, because when he was struggling, he sought help and he was told, like, hey, man up, and it ended up tragically for him. So to answer her question, to me, it's like just flipping that. Like, we're never going to get rid of the man up mentality, and we shouldn't. To me, it's just manning up in a different way.
Yes.
Like, hey, you're still going to therapy. I still go to therapy. I still go to all these different therapies. You know what I mean? It's the same thing, but I don't want to. I hate being that guy because the old me says, like, oh, you never had to do this before. You know, like, other people don't have to do this. And it's like, hey, man up. Like, do you want to be good for your family? Do you want to be good for your community? Like, get your ass in there and talk to somebody.
Yeah. So obviously my dad served many, many moons ago compared to me. But I mean, I walked my dad literally last week into the VA hospital into mental health. And, you know, he finally looked at me and he's like, I need help. Mm-hmm. And obviously that was very hard for him. And he's gone 50 some odd years now at this point, without having to say that. But he looked at me and he was like, this is a problem. And the fact that it took him 50 some odd years to realize that and say that, and even to talk about his buddies and what they're dealing with, it's like, well, I don't know. I mean, I'm proud and I'm ecstatic that he actually did it. But at the same point, it's like, why didn't it happen 30 years ago before you started creating a whole world of problems for yourself? Mm-hmm. So I do think it's, I mean.
That's what I think is good about organizations like this. It's not, there's a lot of great organizations that focus on veterans, but Mission 43 specifically does push that. Like, we're offering opportunity. We're not offering like a sad sack session where we get together and drink beer and tell war stories. You know what I mean? Like, we celebrate the service, but we push the what's next. Like, what are you doing? What are you going to do? What's on your mind? What's your goals?
Yeah, I mean, you hit on it. Like, one of the things that I've always said is, like, don't be wrong, I'm extremely proud of my military service. Like, that's one of the, you know, greatest 6 years of my life, for sure. But at a certain point, you have to close that chapter and write the rest of it. Yeah. And I could sit here and, I mean, again, that whole woe is me thing, I can sit here and say, well, I got hurt 7.5 years ago. Or I can say, well, like, guess what? Like, I'm moving past that, and I'm going to show you how I can use these injuries to actually become one of my best abilities.
Yep.
So you previously mentioned the 7 summits. Are you still on that quest?
I am.
Are you really?
Yes. Yeah, so I still have technically 3 left. So I'm actually going after Denali, the highest point in North America, in May. And then I have to go down to Antarctica and do Vinson. Ooh. And then I actually have to go back to Everest because I was 600 feet from the proper Hollywood Sexy Summit. And so a bunch of people say, you know, you were there.
Is that an oxygen thing?
Yes.
Okay.
My 2 climbing partners ran out of oxygen. And I could have gone up with the Sherpa, and that just wasn't going to happen. So I turned around with my team.
So you just get to do it over again.
Exactly. Left a piece of my heart on the mountain. Got to go get it. But yeah, so I have those 3 left. But yeah, I mean.
So what's the goal? What's the timeline? Which one's coming first?
Denali in May, and then depending on money, how much I can make. I hope that I can be able to do Vinson at the end of this year, end of 2020, and then go back for Everest round 2 in 2021.
So how do people help fund this endeavor?
Well, so I actually. You can hire me for a speaking gig.
All right,
that's really it.
We already did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I mean that's the thing for me. Like with my foundation is I won't touch donation dollars for my climbs. That's just not going to happen. So yeah. I just work with my businesses and with real estate, with speaking engagements and the likes of that nature. Obviously, there can be athletic sponsorships. Mm-hmm. Somebody out there wants to slap their logo on my summit suit, then by all means, I'll let them do that. But
sweet.
Yeah. Outside of that, I mean, it's yeah.
So I know on one of your adventures, you took another veteran with you.
Yeah.
What inspired you to do that and push another military veteran struggling to push himself to one of the highest locations on earth?
Oh man. No, I just knew. Like I've known the gentleman who went with me. His name is David Rendon, and I've known him for a long time, and I knew that he was hurting in more ways than one. Army combat veteran, hurting as an ex-husband, hurting as a father, hurting obviously trying to find purpose. And I don't know, like I just knew that he would gain from that experience, just like I've gained from it. And it was, again, it's the whole mentality of paying it forward. Like I've obviously been able to like work through this and get this opportunity of this amazing experience. Like, how do I give it to other people? So yeah, I just reached out to him and totally surprised him. Was like, all expenses paid. You just got to train, like work for it, and I'll cover the rest of it. And so, yeah, I mean, one of the coolest moments of my life.
And he met your expectations, and he trained, and you got him to that summit.
Yeah, I mean,
which was like 22,000 feet, right?
Yeah, it's
a little above that.
Yeah, just shy of 23,000.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, he might be mad at me for telling this story, but yeah, we were like 3 hours out from the summit, and he did like this, like he wanted to turn around, and I looked at him and I was like, oh hell no, like, you're not stopping. I told him, you're not stopping until 5:30, and we summited at 5:34, and so I just kind of sat there all smug.
Nice.
And that was a rough one for you, right? I mean, super hot temperatures, which gave you a lot of issues with your leg, and man,
super windy. Like it's crazy. Like if I'm going up, you can't catch me, but if it's like a long like slog of a trek in, I'm absolutely terrible.
Mm-hmm.
It is just brutal on my back and on my hips, and just the prosthetic, as it is. So
with where your amputation's at, is it just like all your hip flexor? Like you're just burning out your hip flexor and your hip to move your entire leg?
Yep, exactly. Especially when it's like locked out through a lot of that terrain. Yep, I have nothing left. I don't have a quad or a hamstring to engage anymore. So yeah, what's left are like my glute and hip flexor.
Damn. I get like, I complain about my hip flexors after doing like 4 flutter kicks. I'm like,
Yeah.
I complain about mine getting out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
So you're also a big game hunter.
I am.
So that's very near and dear to most Idahoans. So what do you have coming up with big game hunts? Anything in the pipeline?
Oh, I'm trying to think about something. Well, no, actually. So a lot of the stuff that I have coming up next is going to be muley. So I've never been mule deer. I don't have an antelope yet. So I decided that I live in Colorado now, but I've never really hunted in Colorado. So I've kind of like narrowed my focus down. But yeah, I've been all over the world: New Zealand, South Africa. Obviously, my Dall sheep up in Alaska, bighorn in Wyoming, my moose in Idaho.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have a weird thing that cows are my favorite animal. I love cows.
All right.
But I don't know. Like I would much rather like go out and hunt, kill, process, clean, cape, butcher myself, and be able to like put it on the table and say, hey, like I know where this came from and I provided for you, and these animals weren't bred to die. Like to me, that's like the best gift of nourishment that you can give somebody. So yeah, you come to my house and there's probably 600 pounds of meat in the freezer right now.
Do you have that planned out, that mule deer hunt? Do you know who you're going with or where you're going?
Yeah. So at the Front Range of Colorado with a good friend of mine.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
You say I know some people in Colorado that would probably love to get involved with that, but
well, if you know anybody that would want to get on a Colorado elk, a bull elk, let me know.
All right.
Because I've only hunted elk in California, which is super random.
What?
Yeah, Northern California outside of Redding.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Crazy. Yeah, we'll definitely talk more about that, but I know some people that might be willing to help you out with that one.
Well, Colorado hunting's still not Idaho hunting, just saying though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's close. It'll be a good warm-up for when you come
There
back
you
to
go.
Idaho and hunt
That's
Idaho again. Let's do some wolf hunting.
Oh, man, I'd be all about it.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh, my God. So in Alaska, this is actually kind of embarrassing, but it was a really long shot. But I literally split the hairs on a wolf. Like, I could see it in the scope and everything. Split the hairs on on the top of his skull.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to bring you back.
That's like a nice thing to talk about, but whatever.
Yeah, but that's super cool. And not very many people get to actually see a wolf. So the fact that you saw it that closely is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So now you just got to come back and shoot some guns with us, spend more time with us on the ground, and do some long-range shooting and hunting. And
I also just picked up my Tommy gun, so you can shoot my Tommy gun.
What?
Sweet.
Nice.
Yeah. I do not have one of those.
I'll bring
All
it
right.
up. When we
Cool.
get-
Well, we are super appreciative of your willingness to come here to Idaho to be a part of our event with Challenged Athletes Foundation in recognition of their adaptive athlete grant recipients. So you'll be a part of that event at the Warhawk Air Museum, and we're super grateful. We recognize, especially after talking with you today, how many things you're involved in. So for you to take the time to contribute to this event and inspire some of these athletes and a crowd, hopefully, of nearing 500 people is what we're expecting.
It's amazing.
For little old Idaho, for us to gather 500 people is a pretty big deal to us. We know you've spoken in front of folks at Madison Square Garden, so this will be a little bit different, a little bit more intimate, but hopefully fun at the same time.
I love it. I'm looking forward to it. And again, honored to be a part of it. And thanks for doing what you guys do. It's amazing.
I also want to congratulate you on the Pat Tillman Award, the Service Award.
Thank you.
At the ESPYs, which is a huge deal. And
It is.
Dan, I know, is a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of everything that Pat Tillman stood for and what the foundation does today. We were just having a conversation about just a simple run here in Idaho that's going to go on, and how Mission 43 can participate and increase numbers and recognition of who Pat Tillman was and why people should care. Again, congratulations on that. Huge deal. Again, we're grateful for you. We're grateful for everything you stand for. And I love everything you're involved in, and look forward to continuing to follow all of your crazy endeavors, and simply hope that you'll come back and be a part of everything that transpires between Mission 43 and Challenged Athletes Foundation as we grow conceptually this new epicenter for adaptive sports here in Idaho.
Awesome.
We'd love to have you back.
You won't be able to get rid of me.
All right. That's super cool. So we look forward to tonight, and let's do it. So, all right.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Mission 43 podcast. To learn more, go to mission43.org.